Hi, Lisa here with Dawn, and today we are talking about impact without overwhelming. All right, this is for my A personality driven individuals. I know you're out there, and I know that it's happened to you, that you have just like overwhelmed in a manner that it was like, I probably should have backed off of that a little bit. Right, Dawn?
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I'll never. No, never. Well, I feel like I didn't really know that I was as overwhelming as I am sometimes. But through a lot of time, I've realized that it's important to come in maybe at an angle at least 50% of the time, as opposed to straight on. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just talking about, when you throw open the doors and just walk in. I mean, there are definitely times for that, to where you're kind of announcing yourself with authority. But most of the time, you want to kind of come in and just evaluate the room, the circumstance. Where are you in that moment? And there's so much to be said for silence. You don't have to always be talking. You don't always have to be saying something all the time. Just listening is so much more powerful than talking.
Most definitely. And then I would also say, if you're an introvert and if you're thinking, oh, this isn't for me, let me tell you about introverts. I'm not one. I'm an extrovert. But my introverted friends, the thing about any topic that they are passionate about, they are overwhelming. So I'm speaking to you as well. It doesn't matter whether you're introvert or extrovert, but you have the ability to have an awareness about the scenario that you're in, to make the most of it. Your presence alone speaks volumes about your energy. Like Dawn said, you don't have to be actually speaking and saying something. You can just come in standing upright. I love my high heels, make presence that way, and still have the opportunity to make an impact without a word coming out of your mouth.
Right. And a lot of times, the whole point of today's discussion is, we feel like you're probably listening because you want to learn. That's why I listen to podcasts. I listen so much to learn, to see if I can be better. And I think the most important thing to me is to make an impact in everything that I do. I want to make a difference. That's why I practice in the area of law that I do, because I really feel like I can make a difference. I feel being a lawyer is such a privilege and an honor to actually walk into court with somebody against a huge corporation and be able to stand there next to them and be their voice. Some of the most vulnerable people that have just gone through horrible and horrifying experiences. And listening and knowing that a piece of information that you might get by just hearing someone, as opposed to just talking all of the time, you can make a bigger impact. So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to overwhelm, or are you trying to have an impact?
All right, let's narrow it down a little bit further. As a female attorney and you're walking into a courtroom, does it matter? Do you act differently for a female judge or a male judge, or just the courtroom scenario as a whole?
So that is a great question. One of the things that I love doing is practicing all over the country. So going into different courtrooms, different communities, different states, being able to really absorb into the moment, and you got to know your audience.
Right.
You have to know your audience, not just in court, but at a party, at a meeting. You have to read the room. So every single time I go into a new environment, if I can, I go look at where I'm going first. Before I have to be there, before I have to, do my thing, I will go to that town. I will go to that community. I will go to that court. I will listen to that judge. I try to find out as much as I can about the community and the judge before I even get there, because I want to know what is appropriate in their courtroom. I talk to the bailiff. I talk to the clerks. Does the judge have any pet peeves? How does the judge like it done? And I think so many people don't understand that when you walk into a courtroom, you're walking into that judge's home. You're walking into the clerk's home. They consider that's like somebody walking into your office. You have an emotional connection to your space. So it's their space. And yes, it's a public space, but that's not how they think of it. So you need to be incredibly considerate of what they want and how they want it done. And I think that most of the environments that you walk into, that's a good practice. You're in somebody else's space. What is the space like? How am I going to interact? So I would say I definitely am always myself. I think being genuine, being yourself, that's the most important thing. But you need to adapt to your environment. Sometimes you need to be a little bit loud. Sometimes you need to be a little bit quiet. You need to adapt to your environment.
Yeah, and I think a really big component to impacting is what you said. You hit the nail on the head of making observations of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Reading the room is so important. And I think some people just instinctually come by that. I feel like obviously trial lawyers do. I mean, that is so important, that whole room coming in, the jury, everything when it's full and set up. But people who aren't in those type of roles, maybe that's where something that you could step up your game and walk into a setting and just read the room, check out the people, what's going on, and take it from there.
Yeah, you need to, I think the reason that I'm good at it is because, I've been through a lot of difficult situations. I've been in places that were very uncomfortable throughout, my childhood, throughout my life. I've been in situations to where I really had to pay attention to what was going on around me. And because of that, I'm able to adapt to environments. So you got to get to a place where you feel uncomfortable. Go somewhere. That's how you grow. Go somewhere that is not something normal for you. Take yourself out of that comfort zone. Go to a cocktail party or a mixer or something that you're doing with your community in your profession. You got to get out of your comfort zone. That's how you learn about environmental awareness.
And then taking corrective action. Let's say you do just like a bull in a china shop. You just go in and then you recognize maybe you are a bit overpowering. Like, how do you recover from that?
You don't. You go find another.
You have to wait for the second impression.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. You can't really recover from a bad first impression. I guess you can, but not. It takes a long time.
That's the test of time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's where you have to. In my opinion, you go try to scope things out as much as you can. If that means scoping things out online to figure out more about the group. Going in person if you can ahead of time to see what it's like, just to see how you feel. We're talking about how you feel in a particular situation. And the more comfortable you are with how you feel in that moment, the better you're going to do in the situation. So whatever you can do to try to, get out of your comfort zone, but try to do a test run in some way. I think that we want to try to avoid bad first impressions.
Right.
How do you get out of it? Have you gone into a situation and made a bad first impression and somehow fixed it?
I just like decide, okay, we're just going to start over. Or I have recognized I've been in scenarios at different times, like networking events where I'm just too much.
Yeah.
Because I'm having such a good time. I mean, it comes from an honest place. It depends on where you are as opposed to the level of energy that you bring to it. And I'm not talking about like the poise, the posture. I'm talking about your actual enthusiasm. And I do have the ability to be overly enthusiastic. At that point, when I recognize that I've done that, I just shift gears and start asking as many questions to get that person talking or people talking or group talking.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, always asking questions. People like to talk about themselves.
Yes.
So if you are in an uncomfortable situation or you feel like you've kind of, taken over the conversation, start asking questions about the other person and you see them light up. Right. I mean, I was just in a situation to where someone walked over to somebody that was new in the group that we were with, and nobody was really talking to him at all before. And she walked over and started talking to him, and he just lit up. Like it was just night and day. Everybody just wants to have that moment,
right?
Wants to feel important. The more that you can talk to other people about themselves, you get to know more about them. You get to know more about what works. That's always going to be a good bet.
Yeah, most definitely. I think about my kids when they were growing up, and we would host parties for the business with clients, and friends would come over for either Halloween party or holiday party. And when the kids were little, the friends and clients and whatnot would bring their children. And I told my kids, this is not about you. Your job is to make sure that every other kid that shows up is having a good time. And if you see somebody who's alone, you need to go get them, incorporate them as much as they wanted to. And, it was interesting. I never really thought about it at the time. It was just, I wanted everybody to feel welcome, and I wanted them to want to come back for the next event. To me, that was a successful event if everybody had an awesome time and they couldn't wait for the next one. But what it did is it instilled that in my children that just cultivated naturally on its own.
That's so great.
Yeah. And so both of them have that ability to read a room
and make people feel comfortable and welcome.
And I wouldn't say either of them are nearly as overwhelming as I am at times, but I feel like they make a really good impact. So if you have children, it can be taught.
It can. But I think you've got to talk to, everybody in the same way about, what are we here to accomplish? If you are having an office party and your people are all going to be there and you have clients coming in, it's important to make sure that those clients feel welcome, they feel heard, they, have a good time. It's, we keep on saying it's not about you.
No, it's not about you. No. And that's even just throughout this podcast and putting ourselves out there. We just have to remember, like, we're working to inspire. We're working to get feedback from you. It's an ongoing process. And what that does, when we get that feedback, when we hear from people in the community that are followers and subscribers, it's a sense of joy. And then it just really makes me want to continue to do better.
Yeah.
To continue to provide information and content that's good, that resonates.
If you can, I just think that it's, we talked about that concept about small progress.
Yes.
Little steps moving forward. I love doing this with you because I learn doing it. We try to be educated. We try to inform ourselves. We try to make sure that we're adding value. And by doing that, we're adding value to ourselves. So it's a little selfish.
Yeah, it is a little selfish, but it's also, it's interesting through the time and the conversations that we've had, because we don't even recognize the amount of seasoning that we have and experience that we bring to the table until we kind of dial it back and work to make the suggestions on how can you make an impact without overwhelming.
Exactly.
Like, that's a really good reminder for me. I do that, and I need to know, I need the reminders as well.
I don't know. I don't think you're so overwhelming. Were you like crazy in your 20s? Like you just kind of came in like a bull in a china cabinet, or whatever the expression is?
I would say I was on an equal playing field with my equally crazy friends and my equally crazy husband. So, it's a situation wherein the circumstances in and of themselves just lent itself to looking like they were normal. But then when you are outside of your circle, your coworkers or whoever you're running and gunning with, and you have that same level of enthusiasm, sometimes it can be read as like, all right, lady.
Yeah. Who are you?
That's enough.
Who do you think you are?
Go back there,
You need to calm down.
Yeah. Calm down.
Well, but then we have, other people that, have this presence about them to where you're like intimidated by them without them even saying anything.
Yes, I know. That would be very much like our new podcast team member, Nicole. The very first time I met her was when we did the launch party. And I got to tell you, I looked at her and I could just tell she was reading the room, and she just was intimidating.
Yeah.
Truly intimidating. And it's been interesting because now through this process, we get to know her and I'm like, she's not intimidating. She's just another friend.
So this just goes to say, just be aware.
Yes.
Be aware of how you come across, be aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you interact with others, and also don't judge. Don't be too quick to judge.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure that you're observing. Make sure you're learning about that person before you make a snap judgment. I mean, I'm bad, or I'm better now. I feel like I used to make really, really quick judgments about people, but now I give them a chance. I feel like, you get a little bit of time because everybody kind of comes at the situation a little bit differently. So if somebody comes in really hot, then you just go, all right, let's see how they, maybe it's the day.
Yep. See how it plays out. Give it an opportunity for more conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Not everybody makes the best first impression, including yourself, including myself. But if you're just working to get to know someone, you just never know at what level you're going to connect on.
Yeah. What kind of tools do you think we can talk about when it comes to really just making sure that you're adding value to that situation and being aware of that situation as opposed to, kind of distracting from the event? What kind of tools?
Well, we talk about reading the room, but let's say that's too much for, that's not something that you've done. That's something that you're not comfortable with. So my best advice is just listen to the person, have a true conversation, and listen to the person that you're talking to and what they're saying. Because if you're in true conversation with someone, it'll resonate and it will continue. If you're not listening to the responses or the things that they're saying, I think it brings a sense of nervousness and can just create an environment that isn't fostering an impact.
Yeah, and actually be genuinely interested.
Right.
I think so many people, I cannot stand small talk. I cannot stand small talk. Standing there just talking about just the average, how's the weather, how's this, how's that. I can't stand that. So,
okay, I won't ask you that anymore.
Don't ask me about the weather. But so when I'm meeting somebody for the first time, I really try to, touch on a part that they really care about, because if they're talking to you about something they care about and you're genuinely interested about it, that's a real connection. That's a real relationship. And, like you always said, it's about how you feel about that person. It's about how you leave the moment. What is the impression, the feeling that you left with that person? How are they going to remember you?
Yeah, most definitely. And then you also talking about pushing outside your comfort zone. You may have to be the one that comes up to somebody in a setting and start the conversation.
Yeah.
And if it's Dawn, don't ask her how the weather is. But over and above that, you may have to push yourself outside your comfort zone. I mean, if you're truly wanting to expand your network and truly impact, it's not being overwhelming to walk into that scenario and approach somebody and just in a networking situation, have a conversation like that. That would be a big recommendation too. If you're looking at what I'm suggesting, like read the room, do this, all that. And if that's overwhelming, just find somebody to talk to and start there.
And by the way, if you walk up to somebody and you're talking to them and it doesn't work, you can just walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
It's not your fault. It's not your problem. It just didn't work in that moment. Maybe they're just having a day. You tried, and then you just walk on to the next person. I promise you keep trying. You got to ask 7 times before you get the yes, apparently. So it's kind of the same thing.
Is that all? 7?
7 times. 7 times for the sale.
All right. And then what do you think when I say alignment?
Alignment.
In a setting, like, do you just go in and do your thing, or do you work to get aligned and set out? And yeah.
So I think that I like that word alignment, because you just, as a lawyer, and I think as an entrepreneur too, you have to get buy-in from the people that you're around.
Right.
You got to build credibility. Mm-hmm. You got to build relationships. So that means that It's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out what's important to them. You have to look at people when you're talking to them. You have to make sure that you're engaging, making micro connections with everybody that you're talking to. With the judge, you have to figure out by looking at the judge what's important to them and really listening to their questions and answering their questions. So you're automatically and immediately either building alignment or disalignment in the room that you're in. And that's really, I think, by listening, that's the most important thing.
Well, and so that makes me think confidence is quiet and alignment is loud.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that, listening is learning. Listening is learning. What are you learning when you're speaking about something? Not very much.
No.
I mean, maybe you're able to look at somebody and see how they're taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you're learning a little bit, but you're learning if you're listening.
So all in all, what would you say the handful of tips are to impact and not overwhelm?
I would say listening, right?
Okay.
Listening, very important. Read the room, making sure that you're not always coming into an environment the same way. Educate yourself before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Either go ahead of time and look at everything, try to find out about the situation online or otherwise to prepare yourself. The more prepared you are, the more comfortable you're going to be. How about you?
Well, I would just say what I was talking about earlier, because I've done it. If you have overwhelmed, then you just need to back it up and start with conversation.
Yeah.
Just like if you're talking too much, if you've come in, guns ablazing, you've got to back it up and just start having real conversations.
Yeah. Be in the moment.
Yeah. Be in the moment.
Yeah.
All right. We really appreciate you listening. We would love to have your comments, your suggestions. You can comment below or you can email Dawn and ask her about the weather at hello@ladiesinlaw.com.
Don't you do it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.